have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
My prepper brothers and sisters, you've arrived at the bunker. Grab a cup of joe, a stout tea, or maybe your favorite adult beverage. This is the prepper's place for open discussion on whatever the hell we want. Brought to you whatever the hell way we want. This is the new format of Top's Bunker. So sit down, kick back, post up, relax, and welcome to the bunker.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Military-industrial complex.
And we as a people will get to the promised land.
We will make America strong again, proud again, safe again. We will make America great again.
Preppers, survivalists, off-gridders, homesteaders, and the like. Welcome to Top's Bunker, a podcast for preppers. Leave a voicemail to get on the show, speakpipe.com/tops, or use the live message option on our Facebook group, Top's Bunker. Email us at shtf@topsbunker.com. Visit our site, topsbunker.com. I want to thank y'all for joining us. We got a great show for you tonight. Tonight, I am joined by my co-hosts, Jeremy and Buddy, to discuss home defense, and this topic goes way beyond the obvious, which will be firearms, and takes us into the mindset of securing your home and defending what's yours. As preppers, we are targets. Our preps are targets to those who desire our stuff, or even worse, those who are desperate and need our stuff. You may think that you live in a nice, secure area, but those are the exact areas that criminals target when looking for nice stuff. And prepper survivalists are targets. I can tell you with complete confidence that I can point out a prepper survivalist, even a patriot, in a crowd. I can go to Walmart and People Watch and point out which ones are screaming out loud, I am a patriot, I am a prepper, I own firearms, I have stuff. Keep in mind that people talk, and sometimes they talk about you. I have lived in many, many apartment complexes over the years, worked in the multifamily housing industry for decades, and I can honestly tell you that everyone is talking about everyone else all the time. If one person finds out that you are single, by the end of the month, everyone knows that you are single. I've been to resident events where people are standing around in little groups talking about other people who are also standing around in little groups talking about them. They have no idea that they're all actually talking about each other all the time. And the same thing goes if you're living in a house in a neighborhood. You are not immune to this, the spread of information. In fact, I believe that it happens more when you're a homeowner. Protecting our homes, our friends, our loved ones, our preps, valuables, firearms, and ammo if you're a gun owner should be your number one job as a prepper. Later on the show, we have a special guest coming on who is uniquely qualified to talk about self and home defense. Jay Steagall is an Oklahoma State legislator and local business owner, and we'll be bringing him on in a little while. So get ready for a jam-packed show coming up, Home Defense. All right, guys, how y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Doing great. Good. So tonight we're going to be talking about home security, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, home security, home defense. Can we defend the place that we live and our property?
excellent topic for a lot of people. I mean, whether you're living in a home or an apartment or in a city, in the rural areas, out in the country, everybody needs to consider their home security.
Yes, absolutely.
Guys, where do you want to start?
I guess we can kind of start from the whether or not you know what's coming and what you don't know what's coming. And then I guess talk about the home itself.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we go with what we know is coming? So that could be what, like somebody trying to rob you, or is that what you're talking about, or
Well,
in intruder break in?
more like let's travel back in time to the summer of love in 2020 when there were riots and there were a lot of crazy things that were happening. And
You're talking about Portland. You're talking about Portland, aren't you?
well, Portland and a lot of other places. And it actually started back when during the 2016 elections. And you started seeing all these different factions that were coming out, causing problems, traveling into neighborhoods. And like, for instance, my wife and I were away during a particular period of time, and we were getting notifications from buddies of ours that there was a group of riders that were going to hit a Walmart that's about a mile from us, and then they were going to start coming up into the neighborhoods. Well, the only issue is I don't think that those particular group of people planned for what they were going to face, because everything north of Fort Bragg, where I live, is all military. So I don't think that they quite knew what they were getting themselves into.
That would be a big mistake.
Yeah, I was actually hoping it was going to happen, but that's my own, kind of selfishness.
Sickness.
Yeah, it's a sickness. You could call it that. But I asked them, swing by, check the house, maybe just kind of keep an eye out. And really, if you know who's coming and you can do some research on potentially who it is, you have an idea of who it is that's coming at you, if that's going to happen. It may not happen and you hope it doesn't happen, but if you know who it is, and then of course how many potentially there can be, rioters and riots and those kinds of things are they're an unknown, because they can develop slowly and then very, very, very quickly turn very feral. And it's mob mentality. If you know a couple of different things and you have prearranged defensive positions around your property, be it a large tree, a structure, a vehicle that doesn't move regularly, those are all things that you can use in the defense of your home. And when people think of the defense of their home, some people automatically go to, I got to pull out a gun and I got to start shooting. There are less than lethal and non-lethal options out there that can become very, very handy. There are smoke grenades that are available to the general public now that you can tweak a little bit with the homemade pepper sauce from your garden. There's a whole myriad of things that you can do. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
No, you can get smoke grenades. So we're not talking about the little smoke things you get from the fireworks stand.
No. We are talking pull pin, full size smoke grenades that put out a very, very thick plume of smoke. They're a lot of fun to play with. And, for like military dudes like me, and you see this, you totally geek out and you're like, oh my gosh, I really need about 40 of these. But there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can defend your home without having to use bullets. Smoke does create confusion. It creates a little bit of self-doubt, because you kind of lose your place of where you are, what you're seeing, what you can smell, because your senses are overloaded with just smoke. It's everywhere, and it really does have a great effect on breaking up a group of people.
Just a few weeks back, I was watching some rioters in Great Britain, and they were going down these, what I thought were pretty nice streets with some houses and cars and stuff. But everybody, 98%, everybody was just walking and talking and showing their, they weren't rioters, they were protesters, but there were people in the crowd that were being violent. They were smashing people's cars. This is their neighborhood, but they're destroying their own neighbors' cars. They're bashing in their windows of their apartments and things. And I don't get that. I don't understand where that comes from. I mean, you're there to send a message to the government or whatever it is you're trying to protest. You're not there to hurt the people in your neighborhood. So I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think personally, some of that show out behavior is actually people who don't have anything to do with that particular protest, that particular thing. I think that there are a lot of people out there who will take advantage of what is supposed to be a normal, sanctioned, peaceful protest and turn it into an absolute shit show on purpose, because that's what they've been waiting for. That's the moment that they feel like they can excel. And I think we've already seen in our own country that there are a lot of paid actors who go out there and start acting the fool. And that's been proven time and time and time again.
Right. I think they used to call those, or maybe they still do, agent provocateurs or something like that, where, paid people to cause trouble.
Yeah, something like that. And then for the final part that I was thinking about in that regard to the perimeter, is what we in the military we call it avenues of approach. And avenues of approach are direct points of access that a person has to a place, be it roads, trails, things that are easily
driveways.
Yeah, driveways, anything that is easy to traverse across either on foot or by vehicle that allows that entity or that person access to you, your property, and your home. And really what it is just identifying them both on the outside but also on the inside, because you get home, you come home, you're going to walk in the door, you're going to go to this spot, you're going to drop off your keys and your wallet, and then you're going to go here and you're going to go there. And if you think about the inside of your house the same way you think about your outside of your house, if a stranger busted into your door, there is a flow to your house. You have to think about, if I did not know the layout of my house, how would I approach this? You can make it confusing, but you can also use it to your advantage if you know generally where they're going to go. If it's a person who knows nothing about your place, you can set yourself up for that event if you practice, if you go through those drills, if you know exactly, okay, my front door is here, my stairs are here, my hallway is here, and start going through those different processes and eliminating each one that you think might happen through practice and through training and drills.
It sounds strange to the average person, that someone who hasn't been military trained and doesn't have combat experience like y'all do. It sounds odd, and it was for me way back when I started training in my own houses and apartments and things on my own, because I came to the realization through listening to other people and conversations that you really do have to practice that muscle memory. Your brain has to, you can't just wake up in the middle of the night because you hear a noise and then try and figure out what you're going to do. If you learn all that in advance and practice it just a couple of times, even if it feels weird, you really should do it. I think it's important.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect. And buddy, I think, what are your thoughts on that approach in regards to thinking about internal and external avenues of approach?
Oh yeah, definitely. You're right over target on that. One of the things, and you'll hear this from me, and you've heard it before, you'll hear it again. The importance of an area intelligence study for your actual, where you live in your area, is going to tell you a lot about the threats that you might actually, what are the threats out there? Instead of preparing for everything under the sun, you can narrow it down with a little bit of common sense, and then just paying attention at the news around you with what's going on. If in your area, if home break-ins are a thing, then you might want to prepare for that. If they're strong arm home break-ins, that's one thing compared to a break-in that somebody's doing when you're not there. Going back to the avenues of approach, well, your area study is going to dictate a lot of, it's going to tell you these things. You're going to look at, high avenues of approach. Well, what does that really mean? Well, to the civilian out there, the high avenues of approach, where can somebody come on my property the fastest, do what they need to do, and get out the fastest? And believe me, they're going to do the homework. If it's a higher level than kids, picking your, checking your car doors at night to get the change out of your ashtray and maybe some cigarettes, the opportunist type of thieves. They're going to do some surveillance on your house. And for a customer that I have, I've actually gone out and put a package together on the threat of these higher end home invasions, where they're going in a nutshell. What's happening is mainly these gangs from lands beyond our borders, read it as you may, are coming in and they're doing military operations on your home. And I can get way in the weeds on this and tell you, and I've studied their tactics, techniques, and procedures of how they're doing this, and through open source intelligence and some inside law enforcement, people briefing me on it, what's going on and how they're doing it.
Are you talking about MS-13, or are you talking about Venezuelan gangs, or
talking about all
cartels? Okay, gotcha.
All of
it.
It's all over the news. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
It's whatever. It's whoever's in your area that's got the turf and at the moment, and they're migrant, just like they'll hit a few places here in your local town, and then they'll go 3 counties over and hit a few things, and then they'll go a few more counties, in one direction, and all of a sudden they'll bounce to the other side of the United States. It's not specific to just the blue states and the blue, areas, which they do love those because they're fearless. They're fearless to our law enforcement. They're fearless to our justice system. They don't care. They know that they're going to be out on bail. They know that they're going to, not get an ankle bracelet or get something, maybe a GPS monitor that they can take off and they're gone in the wind. They might get deported, and then a month later, here they're back on our borders, back in operation again, But they're doing military type strikes. I mean,
when I lived in Kansas City not too long ago, in one of our properties, very affluent, very nice property, we had a parking lot break-in where they broke into cars, and it was to me, when I got there that next morning and had to, check the whole thing out, call the police, do the whole thing. It looked to me like it was 100% planned. They hit 18 cars and got away, and it just, to me, it looked like it was done with precision. It didn't look like just a bunch of crackheads out there trying to find change. And I don't know where it came from, how it was done, but there are people out there that are doing that. They're planning these things. They're looking for targets, and they're making plans.
Yeah, that happened directly across the street at a gas station from our house. 2 young boys walking through the parking lot, looking in back windows, did a smash and grab of an AR-15, and it ended in a manhunt in my backyard. We were not here at the time. I got all the juicy gossip when we found out. I have an elderly neighbor who's retired Army as well, and he was standing in the backyard with his dog, and he saw 2 figures, walked back in, grabbed his pistol that he used to use for competition cowboy shooting, walked back out and saw about 20 police and sheriffs chasing these 2 kids through the yard. And he just kind of stood there and watched. And they found the 2 boys. They recovered the weapon. But it also goes to show, if you are going to figure out what you're going to carry, how you're going to carry it, and don't carry it out in the open on your vehicle so it can get stolen. Put it in a thing, put it somewhere. But then again, this now leads into the actual, the unknown, and I think personally, a lot of people don't think about this. They think, well, if I hear something, I'm going to jump up and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be straight judo. I'm sorry, but that's not entirely true for everyone, no matter how much you train, because a lot of people, when they go to bed wearing absolutely nothing. And I support sleeping naked, don't get me wrong. If you got to get up and defend your home butt naked, are you prepared to do so? If there was a natural catastrophe or your house caught on fire and you jumped up, are you prepared to run out and bug out of your home with nothing but your birthday suit on and a big grin? Are you prepared to do that? And one of the things that I actually had to start doing is I had to start making sure that there's a good pair of shoes right next to my side of the bed. Because if I got to get up and I got to leave this place, do I have footwear in order to do so?
I'm thinking this is a great idea to put out a line of tactical pajamas.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
tactical PJs. Could you imagine that with gun
You,
holsters and everything
uh,
ready to go?
you are speaking my habla, man. I'm telling you.
Man,
You could almost take anything these days, slap the word tactical on it, and I'm guaranteeing you it's going to sell.
that's right.
But, again, how do you sleep? Me personally, I sleep like dead. My wife has to engage in physical action to get me to wake up. That's how I got blown up in Iraq. I sleep very, very, very hard, and I'm hard of hearing. So I do have to keep that cognizance in the back of my mind. Would I be able to get up in time and face a threat that was unknown? And that leads into, are you ready to grab and defend? Not only grab a weapon or something along those lines, but to grab and leave if that needed to be done. Do you have your go bag ready? Do you have some clothes ready to slap on? And are you ready to do those things in the middle of the night with no warning? And finally, on that one, if the threat is there, is that threat life threatening? Is somebody breaking into your car life threatening? It's your stuff. You have the right to defend your stuff. But I think for each individual, and this is a very personal thing, I would say probably for every single person, is the squeeze worth the juice when it comes to deciding whether or not you are going to engage someone potentially with a weapon and cause irreparable physical harm and or death? And that's really what it comes down to. Me personally, I have no qualms about it, but that's me. And there's a lot of things that you can do to prevent those kinds of things from happening. Here's a for instance. There is a device out there called the Dolphin. This Dolphin looks like a toy. It looks like almost like a game controller. And what it is, it's actually a signal reader. It reads RFID signatures and it reads different coding that your electronics emit. One of the things that people don't think about is their keys that are inside of their house. Car keys these days on newer vehicles, the key fob is very, very strong and it emits a strong signal. All they're doing is getting close enough to the house, picking up on the signal, going up to your car, unlocking your car using that signal emitter, and they're taking off with the entire vehicle and you didn't even know it. And it's the same thing with credit cards and all these different things. You have to protect your stuff by protecting those things. If it means taking your keys and putting them in a small metal box, wrapping them in tinfoil, doing whatever it is that you have to do to guard the outside stuff. And that's one of the best ways to do it. And don't leave your valuables in your vehicle. It sucks. I don't like taking my go bag out of my truck every night, but I do it. So that's kind of like the inside, like on the actual immediacy of the property line.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners, myself included, not up until recently, was doing apartment living, and I would say the majority of people are living in apartments. If you want to, think about it that way. Our last property, which we built, the company I worked for, and I went after the company to try and make some changes, but they had the electronic, fobs on the front doors where you just put your little thing up to it, it unlocks it, and then you walk in. And they didn't have deadbolts on the inside of these very, very high-end apartments. They just had the fob readers. And I kept trying to tell me in meeting after meeting after meeting, these things can be hacked.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can take my cell phone because I worked there. I was able to install these things and program them. I could take my cell phone and I could go up to any building and I can unlock somebody's front door from my cell phone, hundreds of feet away from their front door. If I can do that, somebody can hack the system and do it themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Buddy, what are your thoughts on the unknowns in regards to defending the home?
Oh wow, I can go many different directions here. Yeah, so far, man. Again, you're on target. there's so many things, and it's all about situational awareness. And one of the things that I'd like to highlight that you mentioned is your smartphone or your smart home that you have that has the Ring camera, that has, an app on your phone where you can unlock the garage, you can unlock a door, you can turn up the heat, you can turn down the heat. All of that tech you have in your house can be hacked and worked against you. These gangs, are doing the same thing with these RF finders. They have teams that actually when they're casing your house, they're doing their operations. They have teams that go out and RF find and get the frequencies and nail you down to where they're not only jamming or masking or bypassing all of your alarms, your Wi-Fi, your all your devices. All that stuff that you spend big time money on is worthless now. They're doing it to your neighbors as well, because they know your neighbors are having cameras pointing, out their front door, pointing out their driveway that's going to look and see some of your driveway. So, and they're coming in, and a lot of these guys have these jammers that they wear, and they've had them on their collars, and they're wearing hoodies and hats and things like that. But you see these little devices on them to where they walk in a room and it has a camera on it, it shuts it off. And they know that they have enough, and it has enough frequency and enough push and wattage to where they can knock out all these things. But yeah, you're right, man. That tech that you have, that you're comfortable with in your house and on your property. I mean, I'm even talking, larger properties, larger scale properties have, electronic gates. They're opening the gates up. You think you're safe because you got a 10-foot tall brick wall around you? Well, you got a gate to come in. Well, they're just opening them right up. Yeah. So, and then one thing you said earlier about, taking an AR out of a car. Well, you'll see trucks, and it's bad in my area, secured by Glock or Smith & Wesson, or, in front of the house, there's a sign that says FAFO, and, security. Well,
what is FAFO?
It is
fuck around and find out.
That's what I thought. I just wanted you to say it.
It's a great song. Hey man, kids might be listening. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
Right. But when you do stuff like that, you're asking somebody, you're telling everybody in the world, hey, I got a gun. And I have it in my car, more than likely.
I call those cringe mobiles.
Yeah. And it is what it is. I mean,
as preppers, myself included, we like our stuff, like our come and take it flags, and our rhetoric, and our shirts with our American flags on it. And us as podcasters, people know that we are preppers, that where we reside, we will have preps. Your neighbors might know this. They might tell somebody, that just moved in, hey, this guy down the block's a prepper. He's got a podcast. Now they know you have stuff at your place. So you got to think about that as a prepper.
Oh, I do. Trust me. And I have gnomes that are marked with certain colorings, so that way. But yeah, it's a hard line. I know a lot of guys, like, for instance, actually, you know what? Not even guys. Let's talk about the ladies. A lot of ladies, moms, grandmas, and things like that, and they have the picture with the family, and it's a little stick figures and all those things. Well, that just told a perpetrator, okay, well, that she's got kids in school. She's got young kids. I even see a baby. And then you see, well, my kid is a fantastic student at XYZ school. Okay, well, I know that she has school-age children, and it creates a mobile target. And that's why I always tell people, don't put stickers and things. And they're cool. I love stickers. I have a thing about stickers. I just put them in places that don't have anything to do with while I'm moving around. But again, labeling your home, if you're going to do that, you got to think about whether or not your home is actually able to withstand certain things. You see the videos on Ring cameras, and these guys are starting back 10, 15 steps, getting a full sprint. And the next thing you know, it's judo chop, and they're hitting the door, smashing it down, doing what they can, and then they leave. One of the best ways to stop that from happening is to reinforce the very first thing that they're going to hit, which maybe besides a window, which is your door. Reinforcing your door frame with 3-inch or longer screws, not galvanized, but actual decking screws or tough screws. Reinforcing that door jamb on the inside using longer screws. Getting rid of the cheap door that may have been installed and actually getting a solid structured door. And some of the simpler things, door jambs, or the door stops that you actually put at the bottom of the door. Sticking that to where if, for instance, they busted it open, that hits that rubber stopper, and next thing you know, they're flying back because, oh my gosh, there's this big stupid rubber wedge, and it just prevented somebody from smashing your door down.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah,
those things are like, you're not going through them.
Yeah, no, and a lot of them were designed for schools. And then along with that, there are now, and I can't remember the brand, but it's basically the same concept, but it's a long rod and it slides up underneath your actual door handle, and it has a 3-point stopper at the bottom. And you push that one part up underneath the door handle, you put the other part on the floor, make sure that it's nice and tight. And when you go to try to open up that door, it ain't working. It is absolutely not working. And then of course,
your idea about the long screws, a lot of people don't know this. I do, from being in the construction business, that your doors, all doors are on hinges. Some are 3 hinges, some are 4 hinges, some are 2 hinges. And the little screws that hold the hinges to the wall and to the door, those screws are half-inch. They come from the factory that way. They're half-inch, maybe 5/8. They're tiny. They're super tiny. You can with a good strong something, you can knock them out. So what you're talking about is just unscrewing those and putting 3 or 4-inch screws that go all the way into the wall frame. And that thing ain't budging. It's not going anywhere if you put those in. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know some people, they're more country folk, but and they have a degree of paranoia, which I find exceptional. But then their preparedness mind, because of their experiences and what they did in the past. This one gentleman, he of course reinforced his door frame, rebuilt the door frame, put in all new I think it was like 3.5-inch decking screws, redid his door jamb, but on the opposite side of the door, because his door opens into the house, he actually installed 2 brackets above the door handle and below the door handle, where he can actually take a 2x6 and slide it into these brackets and reinforce the door that way.
That's very cool. Yeah.
There's nobody's going in through that thing.
No, not at all. I'll tell a really quick story. In the construction business, the president of construction, his daughter was living at one of the communities that we built. And it was a very high-end apartment type of thing, indoor apartments, not where they're outside, where they're inside. You got to go into a hallway and then walk down the hallway to your front door. While we were out doing this big event, like a big company events, the dinner type of thing, her apartment was broken into, like, really bad, kicked in the front door, everything went through. The reason why that happened was because the apartment across the hall had just moved in, and they had guns and ammo, and the movers moved their stuff in, saw the guns and ammo, told some other people about it, and that's why they hit the apartment. But the idiots that did it didn't know which apartment it was, so they kicked in both doors. And this is what comes, some of the kind of things you're talking about with security, is letting people know what you have. That all happened. Now, if we didn't have that event that night and she was home, what would have happened to her?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. And then going forward after that, in the construction part of it, her dad, who was the president of construction, had all steel floor frames put on all the buildings going forward.
Yeah. When I was growing up, and this is in San Antonio, but we had a string of robberies all around our house, but not our house. Our house was actually at the top of I would say midway up the hill, but the way that our door was facing towards the street. And we did not have an obstruction on either side. You could actually see our front door. Everybody else that got broken into, their doors were recessed into the front patio of their house.
Right. So they had a hiding spot to do the work.
And the dudes who broke in were doing that, get a running start and judo kick, and the door came down. And they were casing the neighborhood from the opposite side of a field. So they were watching. They knew when people were leaving off to work. They knew who was military. They knew who wasn't. And, that it was a string of robberies, but our house never got hit. And we also had a dog that, this dog would get startled at an atom moving on a gnat's ass. So anything that made noise or bark, he would bark and bark and bark and bark and bark. And that does help. The people don't really take into consideration the effectiveness of a really good dog who is willing to alert you and actually take action.
I've got 2 small dogs and 2 big dogs, but we had 2 small dogs all the years and living in apartments, going from one to another in all these construction sites I worked at. And people were like, that's not an attack dog. I'm like, I don't need it to attack. I need to tell me when to attack. It's as simple as that.
Oh yeah.
And my little dogs, when their ears popped up, I knew somebody was close. They were good at it. That's their job.
Yeah, but it's a good feeling to have 2 mongo-sized dogs downstairs.
All right, so Jeremy, you had one last point to make. Was that right?
Yeah, and all the things that we kind of discussed. Setting up the ability to know what's going on the outside, and that always goes back to really good cameras and a security system. I always tell people, do what you can afford. If you can start with a Ring camera and kind of go from there, because that's what you can do, then do that. There are even ways to set up old cell phone cameras that still work off of a Wi-Fi signal to be a camera if you need it to be. And one of the things that I do on my property is I have my entire property has several different game cameras. They're super easy to use. They're set and forget. And with the cell camera, if something happens outside, you're immediately alerted. And it works almost the same way as, a good old, security camera that you would have that's rigged to a system. It's just a little more ghetto and it blends in with the trees.
Yeah, I like that.
It's true. I've got 4 of them surrounding my house.
That's awesome.
Looking in all different directions, but it's just one more layer, one more piece of that outside security to tell you, okay, well, something's going on out there. It might be a squirrel, or it might be some kid from a different neighborhood coming over into your backyard to smoke weed. Right. I've seen it happen. There's a myriad of different things, but all of those things tied together can give you, if you start practicing and if you have a plan and if you rehearse these things, because rehearsals are important, can set you up for success if something happens.
Okay, up next we got Jay Steagall joining us tonight. Let me tell y'all a little something about this amazing guy. Jay started his military career in Oklahoma National Guard in 1996 as a reconnaissance scout. In nearly 7 years, he became proficient in small team tactics and maneuvers. From there, he started his competitive shooting endeavor with the Oklahoma National Guard marksmanship team in 2003 and began competing in 2004. He has multiple top 5 finishes in the Oklahoma National Guard's Governor's 20 match, as well as a number of other top individual and team awards at state, regional, and national level matches in both rifle and pistol disciplines. With years of competitive shooting with the Oklahoma National Guard, he still takes advantage of opportunities to share his military competition successes with fellow military members and units both at home and abroad. Jay is a former senior pilot of the mighty KC-135R Stratotanker, retiring in 2019 from the 465th Air Refueling Squadron at Tinker Air Force Base. He'd acquired over 2,400 total hours in the tanker, with nearly half of that time flown on 9 deployments. He became a certified AR-XX armorer in 2008 through Murray State College in Oklahoma. Jay opened Cloverleaf Precision, LLC in July of 2012 and became a certified NRA instructor in pistol, rifle, and shotgun disciplines in 2013, as well as an Oklahoma State certified self-defense instructor in the summer of 2013. He leads multiple pistol and rifle classes at Cloverleaf Precision and has recently developed and introduced FABs. functional, athletic, battle sports training, a staple for today's competitive shooter. He has served for multiple years as an adjunct firearm instructor for Francis Tuttle Technology Center Cleat Phase 4 Armed Security Guard Private Investigator course. Jay also still competes in civilian matches, including the Tactical Games, IPSC, USPSA, and Bullseye Pistol. But currently, Jay serves in the Oklahoma House of Representatives as chairman of the State Powers Committee and House co-chairman of the Legislative Veterans Caucus. He was the primary author of the 2019 Constitutional Carry Bill and was the House author of the nation's first and only anti-red flag law. As a liberty-focused, constitutionally minded legislator, Jay has earned several awards for his work in the House from organizations like the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, the state's leading Second Amendment advocacy group, and 2A Women, founded by Jan Morgan. It's a huge honor to have Jay on the show tonight. My prepper brothers and sisters, Oklahoma State Legislator Jay Steagall.
Hey, it's good to be on with you guys today. Thanks for allowing me to be on the show. A little bit about myself before we get into some of the nuts and bolts. I own a firearms store in Yukon, Oklahoma. It's called Cloverleaf Precision. We've been in business for a little over 12 years, and I've been an SDA instructor. That's, for those outside of Oklahoma, that's a Self-Defense Act. Think of it as your concealed carry or your carry class instructor since 2008. So for quite some time. And I got into the state legislature 6 years ago. And over the last 4 years, I've served as the state powers chairman. But every year for the last 6 years in the state legislature, I've introduced multiple pieces of legislation to strengthen the ownership of firearms capabilities of the citizens of the state of Oklahoma. I've worked with various organizations like the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association. I've also worked with Gun Owners of America, GOA, and I've worked with the NRA on multiple different efforts as well. And the other big one that I've worked with is the NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And I've got great friends at every one of those organizations trying to do the right thing for residents of different states. And it's been a good thing being in the legislature and being able to get my hands dirty with either writing good legislation or trying to stop bad legislation that would say thwart an individual's capabilities to defend themselves through the use of deadly force if they find themselves in that situation. Oklahoma isn't unique in the way that we implement our firearms laws. There are several other states that we've either picked up language from or we've been on the leading edge. One of the things I like to share with legislators from different states is the fact that Oklahoma is the only state in the union that actually has an anti-red flag law. And we'll talk about the effects of that as we go through some of the other bullet points that Buddy and I have discussed over the last few days here. As we take a look at what's going on in the political climate, and I'm not going to jump off into politics here, but we do have two candidates running for president that have different ideologies when it comes to firearms ownership. And there's plenty of videos out there for people to go look at themselves to determine where those candidates are. But what we have to realize here is that the effect of red flag laws and how they're implemented could be a backdoor way for even the federal government to thwart the individual's right of self-defense through the use of deadly force with a firearm should those types of laws get enacted. The people that are affected by red flag laws vary. I like to explain it this way. Those that are most likely to be left defenseless are the ones that are going to be most likely affected by red flag laws. And the best example of that I can give is those that are domestic abuse victims.
Jay, can you explain red flag laws just so that our audience knows what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. What are red flag laws? We see these implemented in different states different ways, but basically what a red flag law does is it enables, at the simplest form, it enables your neighbor to call law enforcement and tell them that their neighbor, you, might have a gun or two in your firearm, and they're afraid, your neighbor's afraid that you might hurt yourself or someone else. So under a red flag law, a law enforcement agent would show up at your house, they'd pull you and your family outside, and they'd go in and comb through your house, searching for every firearm that you have, confiscating it, seizing your property, and then they start asking questions.
That sounds terrifying to me.
It is
that bothers me.
Insane. But this actually happens, and it happens more often than we realize. And I'm glad you asked that particular question, because it leads into a point that I alluded to just a few moments ago. Was it those that are domestic violence victims often find themselves in states with red flag laws without the ability to defend themselves, despite the fact that they're not the ones that actually committed any kind of crime. Now imagine this. You are the domestic violence abuser in this situation, and you know your ex has a firearm to defend herself in the home. What's the easiest way to make them defenseless? Well, that would be to call law enforcement and say, hey, my ex-girlfriend and I, whatever, got into an argument. She has a firearm. I'm afraid she might hurt herself. Law enforcement shows up. They take her firearm. Now she's defenseless, making her an easy target for the abuser, because he knows that she is absolutely defenseless.
A no questions asked type of a law, where if somebody calls in, they can't just call in and say, I know somebody's got a firearm, or, and I feel threatened.
It can go both ways. It just depends on how that particular state's laws are defined, and how law enforcement would treat an anonymous call. So it absolutely could be an anonymous call. I don't have an example for you right off the bat, but we know that that's out there. And that's 100% true. That could happen through an anonymous call. Very, very scary situation. But in Oklahoma, luckily, we've enacted the nation's first anti-red flag law. Senator Nathan Dahm from the Tulsa area and I ran that bill back in 2021. And 3 years later, we're still the only state in the union with that sort of protection for Oklahomans.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. And we've ran several different pieces of legislation as well. Several of us were primary authors of the constitutional carry bill that was introduced and passed ultimately in 2019, which basically did away with the necessity for a license to carry a firearm in the state of Oklahoma. Now, if you're a felon, you're still prohibited from carrying a firearm altogether, which meant you couldn't have the license anyway. But for regular law-abiding citizens in the state of Oklahoma, you do not have to have a license, which brings up the next question. Once people learn that I'm a concealed carry or SDA instructor, they'll ask, well, if you were a primary author on that bill, how did it affect your business? Wasn't it counterproductive to run that piece of legislation, given that, you make money off those classes? And I said, absolutely not. Those that want to take the class still can. Those that want to pursue their license still can. And we encourage people to take the class. We encourage people that are going to travel outside of the state of Oklahoma to go ahead and get their license, because we don't have reciprocity with every state. And we certainly don't have reciprocity across state lines with anyone on our constitutional carry allowance here in Oklahoma. So if you're going to carry a firearm outside of the state of Oklahoma, you're still going to need that license in states that allow carry altogether.
Right. And doesn't it also speeds up the process if you're going to purchase firearms as well? I mean, you're in the system. I'm assuming it helps with that.
Yes, that's another great question. That is the case. So like I said earlier, I own a firearms store. We're in the sales, repair, and training business, like a few others around here. But so far, I haven't had anyone come into the store to run a background check with a current SDA license. But I'm looking forward to the first time I get to do that, because that'll be really cool. They still got to do the paperwork, still fill the paperwork out. It's just that the background check doesn't have to be performed. That license serves in lieu of the background check itself.
So Jay, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So somebody, I get my conceal and carry, or I'm just an open carry guy. You know, I'm a gun owner the legal way. Don't have any red flags. I'm at my house, and somebody comes in to take something of mine. And so, can you speak on any of the rights that we have as homeowners? And maybe everybody doesn't live in Oklahoma or a similar state. What kind of laws are out there, pro or con? What are the laws, for protection of the rights of the homeowner?
A great question, buddy. First thing I want to do in the answering of this question is to delineate the difference in the need for the license where you're carrying out in public versus no need for a license to defend yourself at home, right? The other thing that we want to point out here is that Oklahoma has some great laws on the books when it comes to defending yourself in your home. We have what's called the standard of absolute safety within our homes. So it's not up to the homeowner to determine what the intent is of someone who broke into the home before they attempt to defend themselves. Given that Oklahomans are to expect absolute safety within the confines of their home or their domicile, as the legal analyst would say, then that starts getting off into, now we're talking about castle doctrine. And over the years, we've been able, just a sidebar here, over the years, we've been able to extend what the definition of our domicile is here in the state of Oklahoma. A handful of years ago, we extended that to our vehicles, which included, RVs or RV trailers. Say we're off the main, off of our main property, but we're somewhere else. Well, I should be able to expect absolute safety within my own vehicle as well. But back to your question, buddy, on, somebody breaks into my house. I've got the ninjas breaking the windows in at 3:30 and coming in their black ninja suits. What can I do? Well, in Oklahoma, the way our Constitution is written is that you have the right to defend yourself, your property, your possession, and then help law enforcement when legally summoned thereto. That's pretty strong language. And it also says in that same provision that your right to use a firearm shall never be prohibited in those instances. So here again, I want to point out that it's not incumbent upon a homeowner to determine what the intent is of someone who breaks into their home, and it's simply because of the strong castle doctrine legislation that we have enacted here in Oklahoma that assures them that that the homeowner is to expect absolute safety in their domicile. So the good news is it doesn't matter if they're trying to take your television, or the assumption of the law is that they're trying to kidnap someone out of your home. You absolutely have the right to defend yourself through the use of deadly force. It's pretty strong language.
With castle doctrine, a lot of states have it. And what I'm wondering is, do all the states have the same language in their castle doctrine legislation? Where what you're saying is that you don't have to, the homeowner doesn't have to determine the intent of somebody who's coming onto their property or into their home. Are all castle doctrines written that way?
I don't think they are. I haven't taken a look at every other state's castle law doctrines. But my understanding of it is that they're not all the same. The assumption under the castle doctrine is that it primarily deals with just a person's home. So like I said earlier, some states have extended that domicile definition to include, say, your automobile or your RV, or say you're on a motorcycle. But if those aren't expressly written into law, then your crafty attorneys out there will find a way to get around that. The other thing that kind of is common amongst the states when it comes to castle doctrine is the understanding of the definition of duty to retreat. And let me back up. What's inconsistent amongst the many states is how the state might determine duty to retreat. So even under castle doctrine, a state could enact other language to include what we're calling this duty to retreat in order to kind of give the bad guy another chance to get out of the house before you, the homeowner, utilizes deadly force. That's much different than, say, a state with strong castle doctrine language like the state of Oklahoma, or those that have enacted some sort of combination of castle doctrine and stand your ground.
Just like Georgia.
Yes, just like Georgia. Georgia's done a really good job with that. Florida's done a great job with that. And I think Tennessee is another state that has done their folks right in combining those two as well. I don't know that any language out there amongst the other states is any stronger than what we see here in Oklahoma or a few other of those states that we listed. We're kind of on the cutting edge or leading edge there, if you will, as far as ensuring that those that haven't done anything wrong are safeguarded. We certainly don't want to put a homeowner in a situation where, they chose to defend themselves in their own home, but we are going to allow the person, the intruder, to have some sort of legal leg up should it go to court. And of course, we can always plan on it going to court. But the big difference between castle doctrine and stand your ground is really what happens outside of the domicile. Say what happens in public, because castle doctrine really doesn't have much of a place in public where stand your ground laws do. And basically what stand your ground laws state is wherever you have a legal right to be, you have the right to defend yourself as long as you're not performing an illegal act. An example of that would be you're at a convenience store. Well, it's legal for you to be at a convenience store. What's not legal is for you to attempt to rob the place and someone tries to stop you through the use of lethal force and you choose to defend yourself. So, you're not going to be found innocent in a situation like that. But anyway, as long as an individual is in a place where they're legal to be and not performing an illegal act, then they absolutely have the right to defend themselves through the use of up to lethal force.
I remember years ago when I got my concealed license, back when they had a concealed license in Texas. I think now it's a different license or none at all. I'm not sure. I remember them saying that you had the right to carry in your home, in your vehicle, and any other place that you control, like your office, like your work office or something like that. And I can't remember the exact wordage of it, but I remember the thought of it, being that you can carry your fire, if your company allows it, you can carry your firearm into work. And since you control that space, that's your space, then you're allowed to defend yourself with lethal force, something to that effect. Does that sound familiar to you?
It does, and that would probably be under their castle doctrine language. And it might not be called castle doctrine itself, but that's the underlying premise there. They've expanded their definition of what constitutes castle doctrine. While some of those places may be open to the public, like a place of work, some of those places are open to the public. It doesn't mean it's public space. That property is still privately owned.
That's right.
So that's a little bit different, and we see that on the other side of the coin too, where some business owners choose to, not allow any type of carrying in their establishments, and that's their prerogative to do so. That's private property. I don't want anyone telling me what I can and cannot do on my property, so I'm not going to bother telling them. If I don't want to shop there because of that rule, then I'll go shop somewhere else, and that's the benefit of a free market. We get to choose where we want to go.
The combination of stand your ground and castle doctrine in Georgia is actually what protected me when I was stationed there after a shooting incident.
Well, now you have to tell us what happened.
My service animal woke me up. I heard a bunch of yelling, and I looked out my window, and it was an escalation between a guy in a car, or a couple of guys in a car, and my neighbor directly next to me. And the next thing I know, guns came out of the car. I saw a muzzle flash, and apparently they couldn't shoot because they were hitting my house. And I actually returned fire into the back windshield of the vehicle, and they sped off. The neighbor didn't call the cops. I did. And when he came over and looked at, my house, he made the determination with a couple of, there was an investigation, but I was let go. I didn't have any charges against me, but he said that I probably want to think about moving. And I did. I moved the very next day to a different location.
It's probably really sound advice.
It was. And then later on, like a year and a half later, I actually shot another person in my backyard. It's very odd.
Yeah, I don't want to live near you.
Wow.
It seems to be a draw for trouble.
Well, if you're near Columbus, Georgia, Phoenix City, Alabama area, it's a lot more common than you might think.
Hey, Jeremy, don't invite me to any barbecues, okay?
Well, it's different now. I live in North Carolina. We're just, we're surrounded by other people who like to shoot up in the air.
If I can throw out 2 recommendations for your listeners before we get to the next question, if you've got any, then I'll do that, and I'll be done with the majority of what I had to share. The first piece of advice I'd like to share with everyone is if you don't own this book, go get it. You can order it online, but it's titled The Law of Self-Defense. And this book is written by an attorney by the name of Andrew Branca. That's Branca. I don't know Mr. Branca. I've never met him, never seen him in person. I don't get royalties for telling people to buy his book, but that changed everything about how I view self-defense several years ago, early on in my SDA instructor endeavor. I wanted to know what these attorneys were thinking before I ever needed one. But in this book, and it's been updated a few times, Andrew does a really good job of explaining what happens in a self-defense scenario through the eyes of an attorney. And he explains all the things that you need, all the things that you need to do, and things to think about before you ever draw a pistol. And his big push in this book is to start building your case now. Don't wait until after rounds are downrange before you decide to start, prepping for your court case. The second big point that he puts in here is that self-defense, the argument for self-defense, is not a guarantee. You have to argue for that provision in a court of law before it's granted to you. So don't ever assume that just because you find yourself in what you believe is a self-defense situation, that the court is going to see that the same way. The second piece of good intel I'd like to pass along, here again, I don't make any money off of this, and I don't sell insurance, but go seek out carry insurance through there's I'm not even going to mention their names just to be fair to everybody that's in that business, but there are a few good ones out there, and they're really inexpensive. I know one of them is as cheap as $11 a month, so it's just silly not to have it if you're going to carry a firearm, especially if you're going to carry one in public.
Jay, does that insurance really work? I've thought about it over the years of looking into it and getting it. Does it actually work? Did they help you?
The only response I have for that is that the guys that actually do sell that insurance will provide you all the statistics on how many court cases they've gone to with their attorneys, who are by design tailored to handle self-defense with the use of firearm type cases. And some of those companies out there will tell you, we don't lose cases because we know what we're doing. And some will say our chances of winning this case for the defendant are extremely high. We've had very good luck in court. And then sometimes, because you have that insurance or have that type of attorney already on the hook, sometimes a DA will, I'm not going to say look the other way, but they'll find another way to deal with that court case altogether. And in essence, shuck it before it ever goes to court. So luckily I've never had to use it, but I've had carry insurance for a few years. I don't miss that $11 a month is what it works out to be. That's one trip to Starbucks. How well it works is all going to depend on the case, and all depend on how well you've prepared yourself, i.e. how much training have you done? Can you show documentation for all this? How good of a study of the local law are you? Did you actually think through this thing, and did you act responsibly? If you've been able to meet that criteria, then the chances are that $11 a month is going to be well spent. Think of it as prepaid legal.
Jay, I got a question for you. So where does someone, if we have listeners out there from all over the world, basically, but specific to the United States, if somebody lives in another state, where would they go to find any of their state laws and guidelines for things you're talking about?
And if I can just add to that, Jay, because I was going to ask the exact same question. If I can add to that, many of our listeners live in places that don't allow firearms. So any kind of self-defense is a home defense episode. Where can they go to find the laws of what they're allowed to do to protect themselves?
I can't speak for every state, but I can tell you the laws in Oklahoma are pretty easy to find on our state website. Users in the state of Oklahoma can go to okhouse.gov and do a bill search by topic, and it'll pull up all the legislation that we've run for different sessions if they want to take a look at that. Or they can simply Google search, particular laws in any kind of state that they want to look for. The internet's pretty handy nowadays, so that'd be one of the first places that I take a look. The next place that I would probably take a look is, we talked about it a minute ago, one of these insurance companies. Those that have agents out in the field are very well versed on where to find specific legislation that's enacted in each of the states that they represent, and they're well versed in that legislation.
Nice. Well, in the interest of time, which we're running out of, Jay, I want to give you an opportunity to maybe plug something, let us know about your business or anything that you'd like.
First, thanks again for having me on and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of information with your listeners. If someone finds themselves in a need for different types of firearms training, we do it all here: pistol, rifle. We also do a lot of gunsmith work. And then, if you live in Oklahoma, I'd be happy to help you get into a brand new shiny firearm if you like. We can get our hands on just about anything here. And we have a few different types of programs available for those that are looking for other training. We have some that's a little more physical. I rolled out some training earlier this year called FABS, Functional Athletic Battle Sports, where we teach the fundamentals of shooting plus working out all at the same time. And if you haven't done anything like this before, you have to come by and give this a shot. It literally, pun intended. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I need that.
We do it all indoors.
I need that whole exercise shooting thing. I need that.
Let me tell you, he's killing me right now. He's drug me in. I've been drug in, kicking and screaming, and yeah, I'm one sore guy. I think I have a couple hairs on the top of my head that aren't sore right now, but yeah, it's definitely, I've learned, and after 20 something years in the military, I thought I knew everything there was about shooting, but yeah, this thing has taught me how bad of a shot I actually am. Anybody can shoot rounds down range, in a square range, nobody's shooting back at you, but you start actually having to breathe and concentrate, and your vision goes blurry and this and that, and man, let me tell you, it humbles you really quick.
Buddy's been a good participant. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is I was a competitive shooter for the Oklahoma National Guard for about 14 years. And I'll share my web address. People can go read the rest of my bio if they want to, but I've done well over the years. I've won state, regional, and national matches, both as an individual or a team member, in every discipline that I participated in.
Nice.
And yeah, and I like to tell people there's nothing magical about performing well with the firearm. It's all about the proper employment of the fundamentals. And I had some really good coaching along the way. So I didn't make anything up. I just did what my coach told me to do, and it worked. So we enjoy sharing that experience and those teachings of those particular fundamentals with all of our students. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was something that Buddy's been helping us ramp up around here. This is a new leg of the business for us, and so he's been great counsel for us, helping us understand the market a little bit more as far as what people are looking for, and then course design and course rollout. And that all has to do with the preparedness side of things. So we also offer different courses in radio communications and things of that sort. But he's got an extensive list of things that we're going to be rolling out over the next several months, just to help folks ramp up for really the inevitable. But until then, we're going to keep doing the things that help us keep the doors open here at Cloverleaf Precision. And the last thing that I'll mention as far as the business goes is that we are an ammunition manufacturer. We put out our own product from time to time, but we do a lot of manufacturing for other manufacturers. So if you know any of those that are looking for some contract labor, we're really good at that in multiple ways. And we'd love to visit with them about that.
Jay, thank you so much, man, for coming on. You've been so much information. It's great. And can't wait to have you on again. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
My prepper brothers and sisters, we must remain vigilant about protecting our homes, loved ones, and preps. Having a firearm or other weaponry is a great start, but having the training and practice and the right mindset should be the foundation of your security. No one is immune to being a victim. Knowing how to react fast and effectively can be the difference between success and failure. Stay prepped, stay happy. Thanks for listening, and good night.